Hello, I'm architect Maria Desova and I'm part of the EcoSpace team. Today, in this webinar, we will see how to build a residential area. We will make the street network and add details with very interesting and useful extensions. We will begin by adding some tools from the Toolbars menu from View, Toolbars, Location, and we will use a referential one from Sofia, Bulgaria. As you may see, with clicking on the tool, we can search an area that we need. It could be a neighborhood, it could be just a street. We can zoom in and out. Pointing to the area and zooming in, I could find the area that I will use. As I stay on one place, the map will become more and more detailed and giving me more information. When we are placed on this part of the map that we will use, we can click on the Select Region button and we will choose from which map source we will take the information. And as you may see, I will demonstrate the one that needs payment. But we will use the free one. It is the other version that is above. When I place the map properly, I could insert it with the import button and it would be inserted in the scene. It is sized with the real dimensions of the buildings and the streets, and I can begin to work. We have a button that gives us even the 3D of the terrain, so we can accurately show the displacement of it. This is very useful when we have to give a better information about the displacement mapping. But now we will use it in the plane mode. I will start with the line tool by outlining the street and using Move Tool with Control, I will make a copy so that I can build the carriageways. In this case, we have a middle area between the carriageways. Before we work with some element, we have to select it. Now I will close the outline so I can work with 3 different surfaces and can give them the height that is proper for them. Now we have some flashing material. This is normal because now we have a flat surface, and when we make it a three-dimensional object, we will have solid color. In this project, we suggest a new urban planning with new building designs, so this neighborhood would be changed from the current one. If I need to make the present streets, I could easily make them by using the Ctrl Move command, and I can use parallel lining, and I continue by lining the street. If I have turn on the street, I could use the arc tool, especially the two-point arc tool, to make the curved part of it. With this particular kind of the arc tool, I use one click for the start, second one for the ending, and last one for the curve. As you see, it's a bit of a difficult task to make them aligned, so I can use an additional referential line so that all the arcs start from one distance. In this way of working, we should keep in mind that in the end of the process we have to delete the lines that we don't use or need, because each element makes the file a bit slower and tougher for the software to work with. We can try many different curves to choose which one is the best for our urban planning. And when we are done, we just continue with the other road. We will mainly work in this rectangle to the main street. I connect the lines by using a snapping of the software. This snapping helps me to continue lines in the same direction as a new part. When we close a contour, we will see that it is colored in gray or white. We should remember that we should see the white part of it, so sometimes we have to reverse the faces. Other things that we have to mention is that when we move one part of this contour, we often move other elements with it. Now, using push-pull tool, I will give some height for the road, and then I will reverse the faces with right click on the mouse and reverse faces. That's how I will change lately the materials. I will use different materials for the main road and the other ones. Now I will import a CAD file that would be a referential one for the urban planning. Until this moment, we have the current urban planning. This way of working is not so precise, it's more like a concept one, but now we will see the real professional way to work with. The CAD file would be aligned to the roads with Rotate tool. It is obvious that we have some area of the design that is not included, so now we will download another part of the map. We'll continue with the line tool, with the push-pull tool, and with the paint bucket tool and the different materials. We will click on Add Location first. We will choose the new area. It is a bit to the north. And when we select it, we can even rearrange the size. Positioning the map, choosing the source, and then here with the white circles we can precisely choose what to include. Clicking Import, and it is now in the scene. We begin again with contouring the roads with line tool, and again we want to be sure that the surfaces are closed, and then we will give them height with the push-pull tool. You see, when the surface is on the level of the map, we have some change in coloring. So when you go up with the surface, the material is solid. When we work only with the map, not with the CAD file, we cannot be sure how precise we are. And here with this drawing, we are absolutely sure about the sizes, the arcs, and the other elements. If we pay more attention, we will see that the CAD file is not on the right level. It should be on the lowest one. So if we begin to draw now, we will make it in the air, literally. So now with Move tool, I align it to the map below, to the lowest point, and now I will start contouring the road. When we make complex geometry, we should be aware that sometimes we wouldn't succeed in closing the surface. That's why we can use some additional lines to check where is the problem, where we have some element that is not closed. When we do it, we can delete all the unneeded elements and continue working. I use now 2-point arc tool as it is one of the easiest and fastest way to make this kind of a curve. Here we should be very precise with the levels in order to be sure if the surfaces are closed correctly. If you plan to work with importing a CAD file and you are the author, it is very useful to keep in mind that it should be as simple as possible. So, in this version that you will use, keep only the most important geometry, and in that way it would be easier to align all the elements and use these drawing techniques as a whole. Even in this very simple road geometry, we sometimes have to check and make additional lines to be sure if somewhere isn't closed. If we work correctly in the road drawing, the neighborhood should have a closed surface that would be automatically made by the program. But as you see here, this is not the case. So if I zoom in, I will check the areas as making the checking with the road and making some diagonals and adding lines to check where we have some not closed details. And here I have a rectangle that I add to be able to close the surface of the vegetation zone. And we should not forget to delete all this additional geometry in order not to make the file too big and of course to be easier for our workflow. I continue in the bigger part of the neighborhood, again closing the surfaces and making the checking if somewhere we have missing lines, and of course deleting what is unnecessary. Now I use the offset tool With this tool, I will build the sidewalks. It's a very short way to make these contours to the inside. And then with push-pull tool, we will make the height of them. Of course, there is some geometry that we have to correct, or add or delete some parts of it. That's what I'm doing right now. And here it is very useful to remember that it is more easy first to use the paint bucket tool and then to use the push-pull tool. If I first give the height of the surface, I will have many other surfaces from the sides that I have to paint manually, then just painting the upper one, and with push-pull tool all the other sides, the new ones, would be the same material. In every step I will delete all the unneeded lines. To be more fast in showing the workflow, we will not be as precise as the curve below on the CAD file. Just to save some time, the method is the most important thing. If there are differences between what are we drawing above and the CAD file below, then we should consider what we had already built in the scene. So in some areas I would start the sidewalks from the already built road. To work even faster, we can combine some parts of the sidewalks as making the arcs and the different parts, then deleting these lines that are between the surfaces. This would help us when we use the push-pull tool to work with several surfaces at one time. Here I delete some of the lines, and then with push-pull tool I would be quicker because the number of the operation would be smaller. When working with complex combined surfaces, we should be aware that there are lines on the sides. As shown, we have to delete them as well. We will build the parking spaces as combining some new parts of the sidewalk with the old one, and using push-pull tool to bring some surfaces down and up. In the end of this process, we will paint the right materials for the different surfaces. To be more interesting the vegetation space, I will add modeling of a hedge, making these surfaces a bit higher. I will import the 3D file from the previous webinars. It is a multi-family residential building, and I will place it on the left side of the area. A couple of seconds to be loaded, and with Move tool I place it, I align it to a point, and with Rotate tool I first click on the line of the model and then clicking on the line from the CAD file below. This is how it is all aligned. Now I will replace the building in order to make a sidewalk around the model. Then we will give it different material. I replace the building to be height as the sidewalks around that are made with some height, because the down part of the building's sidewalk would be as high, and now I will model it as well. When I'm finally done with the placing, I will make the geometry with Line tool, and then I will lay the paving over. When I close the surface, I will paint it and will align it to the other sidewalks. Here I make some final touches. With triple click on the left button of the mouse, I select contact elements, and then with right click I make a group. Control and move to copy the object and place it on new spot. As you see, when I triple clicked, I'd chosen only the upper surface, and I will make it now in 3D with control and push pull. And in that way this surface is copied downwards, and now I just have to give it a material. Now this 3D object, I could copy it with control and move on the third place, and I will place copies of the building as well, but not clicking on the building itself because I could not be precise with the distance, but choosing this angle and point in the front. Again, control and move. In a similar way of the sidewalks, I will build some other details of the ground. We will continue by installing a very interesting and powerful extension. We click on the extension warehouse and enter the name Enroth Townhouse or just Townhouse. It gives us various designs of ready-made buildings. I click Install, Confirm, after the installing, we can place the tools where it is convenient for us. I will demonstrate this extension on a place that is more detailed in my area. Clicking and showing the design that we want. We have different types of architecture. I click one and second time, and the way of showing this line would be the front side of the building. If I change the direction, I will see that the arrow would point to the street. This is actually the step of the building. Here it would be the start and the end of the model, and there with blind walls. In the library of the extension, there are very detailed objects with windows, roofs, other building elements. Of course, there are some simple versions for maybe concept scenes. And after I make this building as a model, I could change its design by clicking in the library again, or if I want to work with all the elements of one building design in the extension, I could click and import it in the scene. Now I would show it from shorter distance. With right click we can change now variety of settings. Let's start with the material. We could click and then show some of our materials from the SketchUp library if we want to change with it. Apply, and we will see the changes. There is now vertical element that is painted in this new material. I change the whole roof now. I would align the object to the level of the ground, and I will insert one more building with different design. Of course, you can click a complex geometry. As you see, here I have an angle building. I demonstrate how it's very important to not forget which way we start and continue the building to make the front to the right side. Now I will change this design. I choose the second and the third one, and now I have 3 buildings in the same design. This is how very easily and fast I can see how my area would look like with different architectural visions. Choosing one of the points from the base line of the building and then aligning it to the road, because the whole area would be leveled up so that the vegetations with the ground would be starting from the base level of the buildings. We will see some different steps and ways to work with the common vision of the buildings. Of course, we can use the materials that we have from the extension to the surfaces of our own buildings. And it could be vice versa as well. I will again change the appearance of the building in order to show you some other construction changes that we can do to these objects. I will use some a bit more simple design. And now with right click and building properties, this time I will check some other options of the tool. When we work with this extension, we have the option to make some construction changes by adding balconies or changing the geometry of the windows, etc. And it's just by clicking these boxes on the elements. Then we should click apply again. Now it's time to make the ground. As you see, we have different parts of it, so we should make the material from the vegetation folder of the library that we have with the materials in SketchUp. After we paint them, we should choose push-pull tool and give it height up. When we align one of the surfaces to the level that we want, we could use the double-click way of working, which would save time for us. Now from the 3D warehouse, I will add some more ready-made models. Searching for street lamps, I will choose one of many. It's very useful to check the details of the model because sometimes the size is too big or there are other settings that we have to keep in mind. So we have this box down to see what is the information for the model. Now I place it near the sidewalk and I will align some copies to it. First I will resize by making some pushing up to the diagonal with scale tool. Look how there is a pink line. This is the referential line that SketchUp helps us with. I first make a copy with Ctrl and move to one distance and then press X and number with enter and I have this line which is parallel to the sidewalk. Now I will show what happens if I don't use the alignment that SketchUp helps us with. When I press again the X and number, I would see that some elements are not parallel to this line. So I have to rearrange them, which is not very useful when we have a lot of elements that should be lined. That's why now I will use once again this pink alignment line. I will enter this group of the building that we imported from our design, which we made from the previous webinars, to show you that if I make some changes in it, they would apply in all the other groups as well. When we have such complex scene with a lot of buildings, details, different elements, we can use the different styles to help the hardware work faster. Here I choose a style without materials. When we don't see the textures, we save computational capacity for the hardware and the computer works easier. I would add some other 3D objects, would place them and resize them if we need it. I could enter a group and delete an element from it. And when I want to save the proportion, I would work with diagonal. Placing the bench, I would show you a way of working that is similar to control and move for copying at the same distance with X and number after that. But now I will use rotate tool from center. I would click control and rotate, giving some base distance, and then we'll press X and number. Now all the benches are in a circle placed with one and the same distance. Now I will go back to the original style, shade it with textures, to see the final version of the scene. Of course, we can make many more details, sidewalks and other details in this neighborhood, but now I will show you something very useful if we wanna unify some buildings. We click on the puppet, getting the material from the scene. We could recolor, and in this way I will change all the surfaces with this material. This is the final look of the project. Of course, very easily we could make the ramp by contouring the geometry, then moving downwards some lines. And if you want to see some more details from the workflow of the residential buildings, you can watch some of the previous or the next webinars. Wish you best of luck and see you soon.